Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pleasanton Mayoral Candidates Forum with two of the seven candidates vying, five candidates vying for the mayoral seat. We have three candidates with us today, and two will appear on the ballot, but they are not participating in this forum. This is the first of two forums tonight with the Pleasanton City Council candidates answering questions beginning at 6:15. I'm Gina Chanel. I'm the president and publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly in Danville, San Ramon. My co-moderator tonight is Jeremy Walsh, the editor of Pleasanton Weekly and Danville, San Ramon. And I want to thank our partner, the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate the Chamber's help producing and recording this event. A special shout out to Pleasanton Chamber President and CEO Steve Van Dorn, who is also our timekeeper tonight. Thank you to the community members, and there were many, who submitted questions prior to the event because we won't be able to monitor chat. All of our questions are variations of questions sent in because we consolidated ones on similar topics. We will start with a two-minute opening statements from each candidate. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the questions. A countdown timer is visible to everyone, and candidates going over time will be alerted and stopped. That's the ringing of the bell. At the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. Because of limited time, we have asked the candidates to save any rebuttals for closing remarks. Candidate Brown, alphabetically, will give her opening statement first, and we will alternate who speaks first during the questioning portion of the program. Take it away.
Hey, hi, good evening, and thank you, Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce and the Pleasanton Weekly for putting on this wonderful forum. My name is Carla Brown, and I'm running to be your mayor for Pleasanton. I've served 8 years on the city council, 2 years as vice mayor, and on 12 committees and commissions, but I'm sure that's not the most important thing to you. What you really want is to have a voice in Pleasanton. I started getting involved in city politics for just that reason. I found that I didn't have somebody or enough people on the council that would really listen and collaborate with myself and others. I also found that positions on committees and commissions tended to be assigned to the next person that was already in the sphere and circle, and it wasn't inclusive for new people like myself. So for that reason, I do what I always do, which is step up, get involved, and make my opinions known. This year, I am making a pledge. I'm making a pledge to say, I will not take any builder or developer money for my campaign. I think it means I'm going to be independent and making decisions based on integrity, honesty, and what's best for Pleasanton. I've also worked very hard to preserve our historic homes, our open space and hillsides. I sit on 2 water board committees, subcommittees, and 1 Tri-Valley Water Alliance. I am endorsed by the Sierra Club. I believe we need a clean environment to raise our families and to participate in government. All health is associated with clean air and clean water. I very much support and treasure our police and firemen who keep us all safe. We are looking at other options to amend our fire and police department, but I do not support defunding police. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have candidate Yaverson. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody.
Please correct the pronunciation.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Monith Ilavarson, and I'm running for mayor of Pleasanton. So I grew up in Pleasanton. My family and I moved out here when I was in the 7th grade, and I went to Pleasanton Middle School, and then I went to Amador Valley. My senior year of Amador Valley, I participated in the We the People, or Comp Civics program, and that was kind of the beginning of my political consciousness forming. So beyond that, I went to college at the UC Davis, where I was involved with a few local movements up there. And then afterwards, I started working in San Francisco in tech. And so the time that I was there, I was involved with campaigning for local candidates I was really passionate about, and also local ballot measures I was really passionate about. So that was kind of my first foray into politics and being involved in the political sphere on the local level. So I did that for a few years. I moved back to my hometown about 2 years ago. And so I've been slowly starting to get myself involved in local politics here. And I looked at who was running this election cycle, and I didn't really see anybody who was representing myself or my more progressive ideals for local politics. And so I thought it would be a good time for me to run. And so that's why I threw my hat in the ring. I have these ideals around increasing the affordable housing that we have in the city so that our essential workers can find homes here in the same place that they work in, and also taking our policing to be a more holistic understanding of policing and progressing forward in that sense as well, which I'm sure we'll get into deeper in this forum. So yeah, I saw an opportunity, and I wanted to take an action towards it, so I threw my hat in the ring, and that's why I'm running for mayor.
Great, thank you. And last but certainly not least, candidate Pettin.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Pleasanton Weekly for presenting this forum and bringing us all together. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for running for the office of mayor. It's a momentous decision, one that takes a lot of forethought as to the requirements for the job and the knowledge needed, as well as the courage to throw your hat in the ring, as mentioned. Voting is one of the greatest opportunities we each have, so I appreciate all of you listening tonight so you can make a more informed decision about who is best to lead this city through these challenging times. In times of crisis, you want someone with experience. You want someone who has led through difficult times. And you want someone who understands the situation. I'm Jerry Pettin, and for most of my life, I've been serving either my country or my city in a variety of ways. Whether as a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, a 35-year member of Rotary, or for this city for nearly 25 years, and as your council member and vice mayor a couple of times for the past 8 years, I have the experience, I've demonstrated leadership, and I understand the situation. I've lived in Pleasanton for the past 30 years, brought my business here with me as well. My wife and I raised our daughter Joy here. She went to our local schools, graduated from UC Berkeley, and now works in tech on her own journey. I would love for her to be able to move back to Pleasanton. She recognizes the challenges of buying a home here. I've been an active member of committees who've designed or enhanced the Firehouse Arts Center, the Veterans Memorial Building, and the Golf Course Preserve. And I have served on the planning and the Park and Rec commissions along with many city task force. If it was planned, designed, or built in the past 25 years, you probably had a hand in it. And I represent our city regionally and in Sacramento to make sure we maintain local control and funding we need to support our vibrant town. The role of mayor should not be a person's entry into city government. Let's be sure to vote in leadership and experience. My name is Jerry Pettin, and I promise to do this for you. Please check out votepettin.com for more information, and I thank you for your vote on November 3rd.
Thank you. Okay, now that we have opening statements done, we're going to move on to the questions. Candidates, you will have 90 seconds to answer each question. And we're going to, well, Jeremy's going to ask the first question. So go ahead, Jeremy. You're muted.
I was waiting, wonder when the first person was going to do that.
I had to break that ice. As a reminder, we are going to go alphabetically by last name, since we're not on stage right now. In case anybody gets lost, we'll help navigate you. We'll start with Monith Ilivarasan. The COVID-19 health crisis and shelter-in-place orders are entering their 7th month in Pleasanton. How would you like to see the city government aid and protect the many businesses and residents who have been so negatively impacted financially by this pandemic? And how do you feel about businesses reopening?
That's a great question. So I'll separate that into two things. One is how to help the residents who have been affected, and the other portion, which is how to help the businesses that have been affected. So I think there are many economic ways that residents in Pleasanton have been affected, but I think one of the biggest ways that many people in Pleasanton have been affected is because of their loss of income, their inability to pay rent or pay their mortgage here in Pleasanton. So I think here in Pleasanton, what we can do to help these residents and to ensure that they do not get displaced is to have a rent moratorium and AKA like rent forgiveness for many of these residents, and ensure that we have resources available for them to be able to pay off their monthly rent or mortgage so that they're able to stay inside their homes. So I think that's one of the key ways that here in Pleasanton, we can ensure that people do not get displaced because of the effects of COVID-19. In terms of businesses, I think we've actually done some great things as a city to assist businesses. One of the things is to roll out low interest loans to businesses so that they are able to pay their employees through these times of crisis. I think one other key way that we can help is to do a similar thing to businesses in terms of rent forgiveness. So ensure that the high rent prices that they're paying doesn't force them out of business during the times when the revenues are low. So those are the two key ways that I would help residents as well as businesses.
Thank you. Jerry Penton.
Yeah, so we already have programs in place here in the city, and there's threefold. First, I'll back up to our block grants and how we've added to the block grants for our nonprofits who do a lot of work for the underserved in our community. And then when it comes to the rent gaps, we've instituted a program that we earmarked $500,000 to get people look for loans up to $2,500, and it's not meant to pay your rent for months, but it's meant if you can't pay your rent, it helps you with the gap. And those programs are currently running. We actually funded the block grants by an additional, I think, $360,000, but we met all of the nonprofit requests this year. And then on the business support program that we instituted early on in COVID-19, we set aside $3 million from the general fund. We had a possibility of 1,100 businesses in Pleasanton, both downtown and throughout the city. So we looked at a number of 2,500 to possibly 2,900 if you were downtown, 2,900. We went through that program. It existed for a couple of months. It was brought back to council, and we found out that we had only earmarked $110,000 or paid out $110,000. So during the council, it was suggested we double it. I made the motion to quadruple it. Now you can get between $10,000 and $20,000 for the businesses, and I think that's going to help bridge the gap as these different businesses come out of COVID-19.
Thank you. And Carla Brown.
Yes, thank you. Well, Jerry highlighted many of the things we've done as a council, but one of the things I'm going to say I was very frustrated with the council majority is when the original plan came forward for a very small amount, which was $2,500 for a 2-year loan, and it was a loan, not a grant, for our small businesses. And that's why only 110, which I think the number is actually 177,000 was asked for, and the rest of the 3 million sat stagnant because the cost of doing the paperwork and the time wasn't worth $2,500. So a couple of us on the council, sadly we were the minority, asked to double that number, especially for downtown businesses, which have much higher rents. And we suggested at least 5,000. We had to settle on a 2,900 for the downtown businesses and 2,500 for the rest. And then again, as Mr. Penton mentioned, very few people took advantage of it. So we significantly raised the number, still slightly higher for downtown, but approximately 10,000 for smaller businesses and 20,000 for larger businesses. And that was wholeheartedly supported by the entire council. But we do have emergency rent assistance. And I know some small businesses themselves are calling me and thanking me for reaching out and helping in this critical need. Thanks.
Thank you. So now on to our second question. And we'll start with Jerry Penton. Jerry, the other major storyline this spring and summer has been social justice reform. As mayor of Pleasanton, what specific types of actions will you take? What policies will you recommend to affect positive change in community policing and criminal justice? Specifically address reallocating funds from the police department budget for mental health services and your thoughts on an oversight commission.
So first of all, when this started, our new police chief came in the middle of the protests and whatnot. And And his first mission was to protect Pleasanton, and our PD did a great job of protecting our downtown and our mall when other cities were having failing attempts at that. Since then, we've had a number of sessions, listening sessions, and in our last council meeting, we had our chief come to us and make recommendations based on their police manual and their policies. And we had a unanimous council vote to support the chief's recommendations. Moving forward, we know we'll be bringing back, hopefully on September 17th, a pilot mental health crisis team program. I prefer the PERT program that's from Southern California versus the COOTS program from Eugene, Oregon, because the PERT program keeps the sworn officer on site. Because eventually, as we try to determine, is it a mental health issue? Is it a 5150? Is it a violent issue? That this dispatcher is going to end up with that role. But I think if you still have a sworn officer working with a clinician, a crisis team member, I think that's going to be a better way to go. And we certainly need to allocate funds for that pilot program. When it comes to funding the police department moving forward or an oversight, I think we have an oversight committee. It's called the City Council.
Okay, thank you. Carla Brown?
Sure. On May 19th, the City Council had an item on our agenda, and it was to fund $1.3 million in body cameras and tasers. And at that time, Councilmember Testa asked to look at the policies. This was the first time anything like this had happened, to look at the policies associated with these new $1.3 million allocation. I seconded her motion to ask for that along with the request for funds. And Councilmember Penton said, absolutely no, it's on video. So then 6 days later, George Floyd died at the knee of a police officer. And now everybody's talking about policies that should have happened way before Mr. Floyd died. And if you look back at the city of Pleasanton, our police officers shouldn't be asked to do mental health checks. They shouldn't be asked to do more than they're trained for. And so I 100% support amending our police department with mental health professionals. That may be in our schools. It may be in our community. It may be as needed. I do trust Chief Swing to help work with the City Council to make these recommendations. But absolutely, some of the options are called PERT, P-E-R-T. It's where a police officer without a uniform in an unmarked car comes up to somebody you can imagine with a mental health professional. They come, they talk to homeless, they talk to suicide victims or suicide candidates, they talk to people in mental crisis. This is a program that could work.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, and moving on to Moneth?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'll start backwards forward. So I actually do support a citizen oversight commission in Pleasanton. And I think it's important for that citizen oversight commission to include all members of the community, to include people of color, to include people who are themselves mentally disabled, or who are related to people who are mentally disabled, and people who have had experience with the PPD in terms of mental crisis. So I think a citizen oversight commission allows the ability for a diverse group of people to have a diverse perspectives in terms of their interaction with the PPD, and allows us to have a more holistic grade or representation for the services and how the PPD has reacted to different situations. So I fully support a diverse citizen oversight commission. The first question of the specific things that I would do, I also support the PERT program. I think the PERT program is a great way to partner with mental health and social work in order to have more holistic responses to mental health crises and social crises that we face in our community. What I would do is prioritize the funding so that instead of expanding our traditional police department, we instead use that funding to expand these mental health services, which we have been lacking in Pleasanton for forever, really. So that's what I would do. The concrete things I would do is pursue programs like the PERT program and concretely allocate the next series of fundings to those programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Third question, we will start with Carla Brown. How closely have you watched debates in the state legislature as they work to address the affordable housing crisis with bills that could greatly impact Pleasanton? What ideas would you advocate for on the local level, especially in light of the upcoming RHNA cycle?
Well, great question. And there have been some very scary bills come through the state legislature for both the Senate and the Assembly. It's common for you to hear around Pleasanton local control, but it only works if the people that are in control locally fight for what the residents want and they comply and listen and follow what they're being asked to do. There has been it's commonly well known, there's a housing shortage in the Bay Area, and how to address that is a huge part of the question. So some of the bills coming through the legislature are looking for more luxury homes. As many people in Pleasanton will tell you, we have plenty of luxury homes. What we need is more affordable homes. And affordable can be many, many things. It can be below market homes, priced below market based on income. It can be affordable by design, so something that's smaller like a micro unit or even a duet. But most of all, they need to be local. So some of the bills came through, wanted a single family residence with an R1 zoning to be sliced up into 4 housing units and 2 accessory dwelling units in the back. There wouldn't be any more parking. There would be a limited amount of impact fees paid into the city and the school district. So I think local control with local people you trust is the answer. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona Ilivarasan.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of what's going on at the state level. I think my take on it is this, that the state recognizes that we have a housing crisis across California, but especially here in the Bay Area. And a lot of the bills that they're passing is an attempt to kind of supersede some of the local fight and pushback against building increasing housing in your communities. If the local population doesn't show a drive or a political drive to build increased affordable housing, then the state recognizes that and attempts to push us in that direction. I think what we need to do is get ahead of that and recognize that we shouldn't build more housing just because the state tells us to or just because RENA numbers go up and down. We need to build affordable housing for our citizens and our workers. We need to recognize that we have a massive jobs housing imbalance in Pleasanton right now, and we need to do whatever we can to correct that imbalance, especially amongst people on the lower end of the income scale, especially amongst the people who we've deemed essential workers over the past couple months. Those workers right now can't afford to live in Pleasanton. They can't afford to rent in Pleasanton. They can't dream of owning a home in Pleasanton. And so that's why I think the state, their intention is to try to address that issue, but we as a local government need to actually get ahead of that and ensure that we build enough housing for all scale, for income levels of all scale, to ensure that we have a strong community.
Thank you. And Jerry Penn.
I pay a lot of attention to legislation, and every year I sit on the legislation committee for the city. I also work through the League of California Cities, representing the city on policy committees up in Sacramento. And a lot of the housing bills did not make it through this session because of COVID-19. However, the governor's talked about a special session calling the legislature back to work, and some of those bills may come back. And one that 1120, the one that you could take a single family home and on the same footprint build a 4 duplex complex, 4plex. Sometimes what happens in the state legislature, more often than not, is their ideas are one size fits all in all communities. And so over the years, I've worked with our legislators to understand that some communities are different than other. And I've traveled over to San Francisco and met with Senator Wiener and discussed what happens in San Francisco may not happen in Pleasanton, and we have differences of opinion. And our city's done a great job of working with Senator Wiener and Senator Chin on some of their housing production bills. But one thing is for sure, we are going to see more housing production bills come from the legislature. If we don't plan our own future in Pleasanton and take care of our own business, the state will do it for us.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the 4th question, we're going to start with candidate Ilivarasan. What sort of transportation and roadway projects would you prioritize within the city and in the Tri-Valley region at large? Have your views changed at all in light of the pandemic and economic downturn and their impact on things like jobs, commuting, public transit, and government funding? You're muted. Can we
Sorry.
restart the timer? That's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
Okay.
So my philosophy on transportation is to focus a lot of transportation goals and next steps on public transportation. And my view actually hasn't changed, even due to the COVID pandemic. I think eventually we are going to make it out of this pandemic, and eventually we are going to get back to some reasonable approximation of what we had before the pandemic. And the only way, in my view, to release congestion from many of our streets across Pleasanton and across the broader Tri-Valley is to focus development of public transportation and to incentivize people to utilize public transportation. We're not going to get real impacts on congestion by just simply expanding roads or expanding 580 or 680. Like that's, study after study has shown that the expansion of highways and roads does nothing really to address the congestion that we face in our communities. And so I think on a local level, what that means is to have a more robust bus service that services multiple members of or multiple areas of the community, and then on a regional level have partner with businesses in order to have shuttles that take large groups of people from their home or from their community to their workplaces. So essentially focus on building out our public infrastructure so that we can release the congestion of our streets.
Thank you. Candidate Penton.
Yeah, transportation is so important, and we've been impacted through our own growth and our own business growth in Pleasanton, but certainly through the pass-through growth that's come from over the Altamont. And the Valley Link train system that both Councilmember Brown and myself work on through LAFTA I think, is key to some relief. But then we also have to look at how the operation of BART is, how we can get more people to use BART and ACE, how we can expand ACE in Pleasanton down to Silicon Valley. But we also might be viewing something different here after COVID-19 because of how jobs might have changed. And maybe we're going to see a lot more remote job type situations. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects long-term after COVID-19. Some companies not coming back to full work flow in their buildings for another year. But going forward and longer, I think it's important to understand, do we still have the greenhouse gas and the vehicle miles traveled that we look at our jobs in Pleasanton? And then on the mass transit side, we have a wonderful program called a SAVE program, a Shared Autonomous Vehicle. We're testing in Dublin right now. I think that last half mile is going to be very important to all of our communities to declutter our streets.
Thank you.
Bicycle and ped is very important.
Thank you. Candidate Brown.
I wish I could walk. I'll make sure I'm off here. I wish I could walk to work. I wish I could bike to work, but it's not practical for most people. So I'm going to disagree with candidate Moneth because I see Pleasanton as a job center and that we are the reverse commute for BART. We should be even more of a job center. We're the reverse commute. BART comes in almost empty in the morning. You don't have to spend one penny to build BART trains because they're already coming here to get loaded up. The reverse commute for 680, I did it for years the opposite direction to get to San Jose. It took me an hour and a half and more on rainy days. It's not practical to have jobs in Santa Clara, Cupertino, Mountain View, Palo Alto, San Francisco, and to make Pleasanton a bedroom community. I want more jobs in Pleasanton. I also want more work from home opportunities. And because of COVID, or thanks to COVID, that's happening. We have 2 BART stations that we share with Dublin. Both of them are almost always parked to the full during non-COVID times. And when BART had the chance to build a new parking garage, they denied it and turned it down. So Wheels, and I'm a former board member and president, chairman for Wheels, said, we're going to take it upon ourselves. We applied for the grant, and we are working on building a BART parking lot on the Dublin side. These are the ways you solve problems instead of trying to add more houses with jobs so far away. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Jerry Penton. Let's talk about water. Actions by the city and regionally will be needed to ensure Pleasanton has an adequate and safe supply of drinking water. diversifying the water supply portfolio has long been a goal of Zone 7 and cities in the Tri-Valley since the drought. How willing are you to raise taxes and/or advocate for a bond to pay for any necessary infrastructure upgrades?
Thanks, Jeremy. I don't know that we need to raise taxes just to approach our water problem. First of all, we were really successful with our first phase of our recycled water program, where when we had a shovel-ready project at the time of the drought and the water bond, we came to the state. They had a 30-year 1% loan. Our project was about $17 million. And we were able to get this project up and running through Hacienda, through the sports park, through the tennis park, and all the way up valley to the arroyo. And we're saving 450 million gallons a year of potable water. Our next step should be to get that over the arroyo with the Army Corps of Engineers, out to Maryland Cane, Oak Woodlands, Burnell Community Park, and then out to Calippi. If we do that, we will save an additional at least 500 million gallons a year of potable water. That's how we protect our water resource that's coming to us. Then the other side of the coin is, and also Calippi is the largest water user in the city. So it could be even more than 500 million gallons. But coming back to water resources and working with our water, we need to clean our water, get the unregulated contaminants out. We have a program we're working on right now. And so we can use our wells, all of our wells, in the future.
Thank you. Carla Brown.
Well, interesting ideas, but I think Mr. Pettit needs to do a little more homework. It costs $20 million to take the pipe, the purple pipe, recycled water pipe, from DSRSD, the place where it's being created, down to the sports park, Hacienda Business Park, Val Vista Park, and the tennis center. To go all the rest of the way to Calippi is another 5 miles. If it takes $20 million to go 2.5 to 3 miles, can you imagine the cost of going all the way to Calippi, digging up the roads and installing the purple pipe? It would be tremendously cost effective. It would be tremendously expensive. In addition, I have a chart here, and I don't know if people can see it, but what it shows is the excess water that's available from DSRSD. And from the months of May to October, there is no excess water. It's all being used on the existing purple pipe. So you might be able to have water from January to May, but I don't think you need it. So my recommendation is to continue to supply the purple pipe where we are. I know it's a short-term fix. We might look at a scalping plant, which is something that would help create water up remotely, so that we didn't have to pipe it all the way across. And then to touch on PFAS real quick, we've had a meeting just this last Tuesday. We're going to remove the PFAS from well 8 and probably from well 5 and 6, because the health and safety of our residents is the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you. And Monith Ilavarasan. I think.
Yeah, sorry about that again. So right now we have 3 wells where we get the majority of our drinking water. And one of those wells, well 8, as Carla mentioned, got tested for super high levels of PFAS, which we have shut down. So cleaning that water, we need to figure out a way to clean that water, and any kind of methodology we use to clean that water, whether it be reverse osmosis or ion exchange resins, it would cost a lot of money. And if we are going to make the decision to clean the well 8 water, we might as well make the decision to clean the other well waters as well, to ensure the safety of our water for our citizens. And all that involves a serious amount of investment, and all that does involve passing bond measures in order to see that we actually carry them out. So my stance on water is that we need to do everything that we can to prioritize having safe drinking water for our citizens, and that includes raising funds through bond measures in order to make that a reality.
Thank you.
On to number 6. And we'll start with candidate Brown. How are you approaching campaign fundraising? Are you accepting campaign contributions from labor organizations such as police and teachers unions, developers, or big corporations?
All right. Well, I made a pledge to not accept funds, campaign donations from builders or developers. That to me is it is a question of my balance and integrity. I've seen as a council member, because donations are public, I have seen donations come in and be followed by a project. It's suspicious, but I would never say any of my council members' votes are for sale. But why would somebody make a generous donation shortly before a decision is made for a building and a project? Would I accept from a teachers union or police union? No. But trust me, teachers unions are not offering city council members, not offering me any money. For a large corporation, I would think it depends. It would very much depend on that corporation and what their level of business is. However, would I accept donations from small businesses in town? Absolutely, absolutely. That is the cornerstone of our business. And I would also accept funds from adjacent. There is a gravel company that gave me a donation last election 4 years ago, not this election, and they just want to do business and be left alone. They're in the county, and I felt that was, they were very much aligned with my goals for the region of East Pleasanton, and so I was happy to accept a donation from that. But in general, I'm very picky about who I take money from. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Olivarson?
Yeah, I think this question is going to be pretty easy for me. We're staying pretty independent this campaign. So most of our donations average around $5. And that's because the people that I represent are most of the people that that are part of the campaign and that are inspired by this message are the people that we've talked about earlier, the people who work in service industries here in Pleasanton or work as nurses' aides over at Valley Care. Like, these are the people who are supporting our campaign, and they don't have a ton of money to give. And so we just ask for a tiny donation to keep the campaign going along. And so that's why our average donation is $5. We don't accept any money from developers. I don't even know any developers, so I don't know who I can call to get that. But no, we don't accept any money from them because a lot of the policies that we're saying aren't super conducive to developers. They're more building affordable housing involves getting nonprofit developers involved who themselves don't have a ton of money to just throw around for campaign donations. So yeah, our campaign is reliant on small donations and a young volunteer force that's mobilized and passionate about these issues to get the word out. So yeah, that's my my campaign stance on fundraising.
Thank you. And candidate Penton?
This is my fourth campaign, and up to this point, most of my donations have been from family and friends and people who know me. And so far in this campaign, my largest donors are a family who ran a daycare and helped raise my daughter through elementary school, and my mother-in-law. So my donors are everyday people in Pleasanton. I think there's a big difference between saying you won't take developers' money, but you'll take special interest money. One of my opponents here has taken money from the quarry and from the anti-Costco folks. It helped fund her campaigns. She's still taking that money. So you have to be able to decide if you're going to tell people you won't take money, is you really need to say, I'm not going to take special interest money. And if you say that, then you really do get down to the mom and pop. And most of my donations, if not all of my donations in this campaign, have been exactly that. I have people who support me because they know my history and they know that my vote isn't for sale, that I have integrity and I live with that. I'm a former Marine. I'm in Rotary, service above self. It just isn't for sale. And there's just no amount of money that could ever sway me in any direction. So the money that I take is money to run this campaign and become the next mayor of Pleasanton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, Monith Ilavarasan. As mayor, how would you lead a diverse group of council members to make a decision that benefits the entire community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that fundamentally just gets down to like how you work as a team, right? And the way you do that is you form relationships with your fellow council members. You understand not only their point of view, but you also understand who they represent, who they particularly represent. I think one of the reasons I'm running is I think in Pleasanton, the city council historically has represented a very specific part of the population. And I think one thing that I could bring to the table is a voice for a large part of the population that either A, isn't super invested or involved in local politics historically, or doesn't see the value of being involved in local politics. So my plan is to bring that voice in and cooperate deeply with the other voices that in my opinion, been overrepresented in Pleasanton politics for a very long time. And that cooperation stems from a deep empathy for the people that you're serving with, and also an empathy for the people that they represent.
Thank you. Jerry Penton.
Yeah, I think it's great to have a council of 5 members in Pleasanton that have their own voices and their own, they do their own work, their own homework, their own outreach. But once we're in the room, once we're trying to make a decision, it's always my hope that the council will work together and make the best decision for the citizens of Pleasanton, currently and for the future. In other words, representing everyone. And I think over the last 8 years, I think we've done that. I think we've had a very cooperative council. And I think sometimes the leadership that comes in council is if you know that it's hard when you have a vocal minority that are louder than a silent majority. And so you have to know, you have to listen to people. And I can tell you, there's been times I've had people in front of me who are speaking and I'm thinking, well, they definitely are opposed to the views that I have. But I always glean something from these folks. I always listen. And I think the council members that I've worked with over the years, including Carla and former members like Arnie and Cheryl, I think we've all found ground to work together. And I think all of us have our leadership in different ways. And I know that I provided leadership on many issues in the city and got the job done on council. And I think I can do that as a mayor.
Thank you. And Carla Brown.
Sure. I enjoy a discussion of 5 different points of view because I come with great respect to people who do have different points of view. They've done their homework, they've done their research, and very importantly, they talk to their sphere and their group of residents and bring that to the council. To me, a city council meeting is for the public. It is for us to listen to what the public has to say. They are the reason we're holding public, transparent meetings. So they can come, share their concerns and their preferences, and then we need to listen. Actually, these new COVID restrictions with Zoom calls makes it a little bit more difficult and cumbersome. I wish I could see the faces of some of the people who come to speak, and usually we just see a voice. So it's not as personal, and their passion doesn't come across quite as strongly, but it's still wonderful to have reach out. I think I work really well with my council members. I respect them, and I have been sometimes the 1 out of 1-4, and I've been the 2 out of 2-3, but no matter what, I'm going to take leadership. I'm a former manager of a real estate office. I'm a former account manager for Intel Worldwide. I know how to lead, I know how to listen, and I know how to make people feel that they're a part of the decision-making process. So I look forward to it.
Thank you. I think this is going to be our last question, so we have plenty of time for the closing statements. And we are going to start with candidate Penton. The proposed Costco store is again a central issue of a Pleasanton city election every cycle since 2016. What is your plan to navigate around the obstacles and help the project push towards fruition? Or do you oppose the Costco proposal for Johnson Drive?
Oh, great question. Thanks, Gina. I have supported Costco. Actually, I've supported the Johnson Drive Economic Development Zone from day one. I've never wavered. I think it's a great opportunity to grow that part of Pleasanton. But beyond that, the opportunity to put a Costco in, keep the tax revenue in Pleasanton. We have 22,000 households with Costco memberships, 27,000 members of Costco in Pleasanton. And why would we require our residents to drive. And it's made light of by certain people that it's only 5 miles this way or 7 miles that way. But pre-COVID, those freeways are packed and it's hard to get to and hard to get back. But keeping the tax benefit here, keeping the opportunity for people who want to shop at Costco, and obviously we have a lot of people in Pleasanton to do that, is really important. The other side is we also get 2 hotels. We need the hotels in Pleasanton for business and for the different events and whatnot we have in Pleasanton. And then beyond that, the economic zone, the opportunity to grow that part of Pleasanton, which isn't growing, is something that we should work towards. And I believe we will get through this current lawsuit and bring it back, and we will have a Costco, we will have an economic zone, and we will get this done.
Thank you. Candidate Brown.
Well, thank you. When Measure MM came to the ballot, it was one that was well debated, and I did not take a stand on it. I wanted the residents to decide. It was controversial, not because it brought a Costco to Pleasanton, but because of the pre-funding needed for the roads and infrastructure. And the number moves around a little bit, but it's in the area of 23 to 25 million. One third is the way it would be allocated. A third paid for by Costco, a third paid for by future Johnson Drive economic development tenants or building owners, and then the third by the hotels. And here's the question, and I've been asking the city manager, and I will put my foot down because even just this last Monday, I wanted to know if the hotels are still in. It concerns me that the travel industry, including the hotels, is right now so slow that Marriott may or may not be interested in that transaction. And if Marriott pulls out, you can imagine that the traffic will come down. We'll have to redo the numbers and see if we still have a project. But for Costco and Costco alone, it is moving forward with the exception of the environmental impact report studies and the 2 lawsuits. I am disappointed that the city and their environmental impact report wasn't complete enough to stand up to the challenge of a residence and an attorney review. So now we're going for a second round on questioning those reports. And so we'll see. Thanks.
Thank you. And candidate Elevarason.
Yeah, I support the Costco here in Pleasanton. I think what we see here is like a vocal minority pushing back against the Costco, and on the opposite side is the majority of Pleasantonian residents are okay with having a Costco there and are okay with the tax benefits that we get from having the Costco there. So I support it, and I think we should push that through. I do not support the broader economic development zone initiatives. I don't think that we need 2 hotels right next to Costco to increase the congestion there, and also due to the effects of COVID-19 and the travel industry deprecating over the past few months and for the next year, I don't think that's a super wise decision to push through at this point in time. So on the Costco in particular, I think we need to do what we can to push it through. If we can extract more concessions from Costco to help supplement some of the transportational infrastructure that we need to build to support them, I think we need to push forward and do that in order to push the project forward. So that's my take on the Costco.
Okay.
Thank you. And that does mark the end of our questioning period. Each candidate will now have up to 3 minutes to provide closing statements. We are going to go in reverse alphabetical order from the opening statement, and we will start with Jerry Penn.
Well, once again, thank you for having me here today. I don't have any rebuttal. This is a community of character, and all of us running for office have our backgrounds and experience, our issues and reasons. If there's been any misleading statements, I'll leave that to the voters to decide. You know, people often run for office, whether for school board, council, or even mayor, because something somewhere has spurred them to act, to engage, to get involved. And it could be current issues such as defunding our police force, or long-stated views such as being anti-growth. Could be a number of issues, but these offices, especially mayor, require more. They require someone who can understand the complex issues, listen to all of our citizens, and make the short and long-term decisions that will continue Pleasanton's long-standing success of being one of the best cities in the nation. If you look around at the major initiatives that have taken place over in the last 20 years in Pleasanton in our community, chances are I was involved in it. We may all think that 2020 is a historic year. It's been a very difficult year, but we can't forget that 2021 and beyond need our undivided attention. And I know that we will have our hands full after we finally emerge from the pandemic crisis, that we will need to be proactive in our approach to moving forward. And with that, I believe our council needs to be a strong, well-prepared council. And the mayor's role will be more important than ever, requiring true experienced leadership with knowledge only gained from having been in the trenches for years, maybe even decades. And I'm the only candidate that fits that description. I'm passionate about Pleasanton, about how I can continue to serve and continue to make Pleasanton one of the most wonderful places to live, to raise a family, to enjoy life, and even retire. If elected as mayor, I will continue to serve this city. I will continue to provide the city and its residents with the experience I've gained, the knowledge I've learned, and the leadership I bring as your mayor. We all love this city. We all want to do the right thing. I'm here to do that. I'm Jerry Penton. Please vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Monith Ilivarasan.
So I think that like most people's conception of politics exists at the federal or national level. And a lot of people don't understand the power of what local politics can do and how local politics is the number one thing that kind of shapes your reality around you. And, you know, it's funny, like when I talk to people, when I canvass and I say, hey, my name's Monith, I'm running for mayor. The number one thing that they ask me is, oh, dude, that's super cool. What exactly does the mayor do? Or what exactly does the city council do? And so that's where I think that education starts. And that's actually one of the reasons that I'm running. You know, a lot of people that I talk to don't have this conception that, you know, a lot of these issues that we see in the news or we see everywhere at the national federal level, they just seem so big and unapproachable. And at the local level, though, that is where you can take those problems and see how they affect and penetrate your community and act upon it. And you know, the stuff that we've talked about earlier in terms of affordable housing and seeing where a police force goes, I think those are two key aspects of things that we see these crises everywhere. We hear them every day on the news, like a new thing happening. And what I want to do is build a campaign and build this consciousness amongst people, especially here in Pleasanton, that, you know, these things aren't unapproachable and these things aren't just like background noise. They're things that you can actually take, see how they affect your community and push forward and actually tackle them. And it's through that action that you find some kind of meaning in being part of the community and being part of something larger than yourself. So yeah, that's part of why I'm running is to kind of raise this consciousness. It's something that, you know, I've been developing or been trying to develop over the past few years. And it's been awesome talking to people, sharing that point of view and getting people excited about being involved in their local government. And so, and yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm running. That's why I'm really passionate about getting involved and pushing forward for the ideals that I believe in. And so, yeah, that's my closing statement.
Thank you. Carla Brown.
Oh, welcome to the race. I appreciate it. Yes. So why am I running for council? It is actually, or why am I running for mayor? Excuse me. That was 4 years ago. I am running for mayor because I had so many people in the population of Pleasanton and residents ask me to, please. And you know, this is not a high-paying job. The mayor makes about $1,100 a month. We do it because we love our community. We do it because we want to be that voice of residents. That we do it because we've had that rare opportunity to step up. People know our name, and it is the next step. I'm termed out as a city council member, so I will not be doing city council members after I'm done here at the end of this year. So 2020 has been a very difficult year. It needs a leader that will be at your side as we restore our health and our economy. And that economy means not just downtown, it means throughout the city of Pleasanton. I have made a clean money pledge, and if somebody who I saw things differently still donates to me, I think that speaks volumes out of the respect that they have for me and my leadership. But I will not take money from builder developers. It is one of the main jobs that this council has done as is look at projects coming forward, look at zoning on projects, including our downtown. And are we going to switch a key restaurant over to high density or medium density housing, or are we going to retain that restaurant or a gas station? Do we want 3-story buildings replacing shops and restaurants downtown? I do not. So they see that and they say, I want to be on your team. I want to help you. And residents say, I want to donate. I am a slow and smart growth advocate. That means that development needs to be metered in. As construction happens, we have funds to build schools or expand schools, to build roads, infrastructure, water. Where are we, if we build what has been proposed, 1,900 homes in the east side, where are they going to get their drinking water from? Think about it. This is important to all of us that are living here now, as well as who's going to come here in the future. It's unfair to build a house and then say, by the way, you have no water. So smart development and slow development, to me, is what created and formed and shaped the city of Pleasanton. It is why we're unique. It is why we're different than some of the surrounding cities around us, but it's also because leadership said to the state, we want local control. We want it to look different than San Francisco, and we want a voice. So lastly, I fought hard to preserve historic downtown. I collaborate well with others. And I think I'm going to make a very good mayor. www.vote4carla.com. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the Weekly, I would like to thank the candidates for Mayor of Pleasanton for participating in this first forum. We are going to take a 15-minute break and return with the candidates for Pleasanton Council. Thank you, and see you in 15 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
There we go. Thanks, Gina.
And we have started recording. Well, welcome or welcome back. This is the second of the 2 forums tonight, and we are now welcoming the candidates for Pleasanton City Council. There are 7 candidates vying for 2 open seats, and all 7 candidates are participating tonight, so thank you. I'm Gina Chanel. I'm president and publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly in Danville, San Ramon. My co-moderator tonight is Jeremy Walsh, editor of Pleasanton Weekly in Danville, San Ramon. And I want to again thank our partner, Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce, for producing the forum, and another shout out to Chamber President and CEO Steve Van Dorn for being our timekeeper tonight. All of our questions are variations of questions sent by community members prior to the event, and we consolidated questions on similar topics. We won't be monitoring the chat for questions tonight. It's very distracting, and we're not able to do that. But let's review the format for the audience and for the candidates. We will start with 2-minute opening statements from each candidate. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to questions. A countdown timer is visible to everyone, and candidates going over the time limit will be alerted and stopped. At the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. Because of the limited time, we have asked the candidates to save any rebuttals for closing remarks. And we're going to go in alphabetical order by last name. So candidate Allen will give her opening statement first, and we will alternate who speaks first during the questioning portion of the program. Are we ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Am I on?
You are on.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to join you tonight. My name is Nancy Allen. I chose Pleasanton as my home 36 years ago because I love Pleasanton's friendly small town character, our charming downtown, excellent schools, and our scenic hillsides. 13 years ago, I began serving our community to preserve these attributes, and I'm currently in my 7th year as a planning commissioner. During my professional career, I held leadership positions in the finance and telecommunications industry, where I manage large budgets and work with diverse teams to achieve goals. I have a Bachelor's of Art in Economics from UC Davis, and I also have a Master's in Business Administration. But enough about me. Why am I running for the City Council? We're at a crossroads because of term limits. We're losing decades of experience on the council while facing unprecedented challenges. I believe we need leaders with two essential qualities. One, the experience to navigate the complex challenges we face, and two, the independence to make objective decisions to put the interests of our local residents and small business first. The second quality is independence, is what inspired me to get involved with local government and why I'm here tonight. 13 years ago, the council took a first vote to approve a large project near downtown. This project would have devastated many small businesses and been bad for the city. But the developers and special interest groups fought hard for approval. I brought the community together to help the city relook at the data. When the data came back, the council realized this was a serious mistake and halted plans for the second Home Depot. I learned two things: citizens can make a difference, and there are influences we need to overcome. So here I am. I've continued to fight for our residents and small businesses, and I want to be your voice on the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Arkin.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Valerie Arkin, and I am a candidate for the Pleasanton City Council. I am a current school board member in Pleasanton, and I've been on the board for 12 years. I've contributed to the financial stability and award-winning programs that make our school district one of the best in the state. As an elected official, I have always been accessible and responsive to community input and feedback, and I always take the time to listen and engage the public. That will be a continued priority of mine. I was also a library commissioner in Pleasanton for 8 years. I'm a 27-year resident of Pleasanton, and I've raised my 3 children here. I have a BS degree in health science and an MBA degree. I am a manager at Hively, a local nonprofit that provides resources to families in need in Pleasanton. I am an advocate of smart growth. I support controlled growth policies that reduce impacts to schools, traffic, and water. I believe in protecting the environment, and I will advocate for protecting our scenic hillsides. Our historic downtown is the crown jewel of our city, and I will advocate for preserving the small town charm. Ensuring our safe water supply is a priority, and with the recent issues of contaminants found in our drinking water well, it's essential to look at ways to protect the health and safety of our residents. With the policing issue in Pleasanton, I'm supportive of open communication, transparency, and oversight. It's encouraging to see recent city council actions addressing the issue, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. It's important to continue exploring creative ways to support our residents and small businesses during COVID. I am pleased with recent city decisions regarding loans to small businesses and rental assistance to families. I look forward to exploring innovative solutions. Having studied public health and epidemiology at the university level, along with a master's degree in business, I am uniquely qualified in dealing with this issue. I have made the pledge to not accept developer donations in order to avoid any conflict of interest. Please visit votevaleriearkin.com. My experience, background, and priorities makes me an excellent candidate for the Pleasanton City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Belch.
Yep. So hello, everyone. My name is Jack Balch. I'd like to begin by expressing my appreciation of my fellow candidates. It's encouraging to see so many people willing to serve in Pleasanton during a definitely interesting year to run for office. I grew up on the Snow-Fremont border and went to Snow Glen Elementary School. While there, I raised pigs through the Snow 4-H project and showed them each summer at our Alameda County Fair. During these summers, I fell in love with Pleasanton and I have wonderful childhood memories of town. From the water slides at Shadow Cliffs, walking the open space ridgelines, and definitely getting ice cream downtown. So after college, it wasn't a hard decision to return to Pleasanton. And I'm proud that my wife and I, like many families, have been able to celebrate many firsts in town, including our wedding reception, the birth of our son at Valley Care, coaching his first Little League baseball team, and now watching him get way too much ice cream downtown. My family has been serving this community for decades, and I've had the distinct honor of serving Pleasanton for over a decade myself. For over 11 years ago, I became a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, where I served for nearly 5 years. And now I'm honored to be a Pleasanton Planning Commissioner for the past 6. I've been a certified public accountant nearly my entire adult life, and I've been in a professional and finance role for more than 21 years. As we look to our future in these complicated economic times, I believe we need experience for Pleasanton now, more than any other time in our city's history. As a CPA that understands the numbers, understands how our city operates, I am ready to serve you. I will focus on promoting our economic recovery, recommitting ourselves to keeping our neighborhood safe, strengthening our city-school partnership, and ensuring our city government finances are fiscally sound, transparent, and accountable to you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Candidate Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity today to be part of this forum. My name is Randy Brown, and I am running for Pleasanton City Council. I too am very encouraged by all of the participants here throwing their hat in the ring for such an important call. I believe there are many paths to civic leadership, and I believe that a truly effective and dynamic council consists of members who bring varied experiences and opinions to the table. The issues facing our community in the coming years are fairly clear: public safety, economic stability, housing, traffic, and preservation of local resources. The question is, who do you want making decisions on behalf of Pleasanton? I believe we need leaders who are honest, balanced, and committed and motivated. I live my life with these attributes, and I truly feel I am the leader that Pleasanton needs as part of the council as we move forward. I'm Randy Brown, candidate for Pleasanton City Council. You can go to my website, Randy Brown or randyforpleasanton.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bunya.
I think you might be muted.
And that's why I'm running. Apologize. Yeah, sorry for the mute. Yeah, I think this panel is a testament to what a special city this is. It's a very talented city, and I would argue its greatest asset are the kids and young people who grow up here and go off into the world and do amazing things. I had the privilege, I had the honor to grow up here. I went to Fairlands Elementary School. I went to Harvest Park, graduated from Amador Valley, have been part of this community for pretty much my entire young adult life. But I moved on. I went to UC Berkeley, and then I went to UCLA, got a law degree, have been practicing law for the last 20 years, both in the US, Europe, and in Asia, and had an opportunity to see many different cultures and many different communities live their lives. And when it came time to raise a family and to set down roots and grow a family, I decided to move back to Pleasanton, and I have. And I hope I inspire other people who grew up here to come back, because this is a special place. And I want my kids to have the same opportunities and the same benefits that I got by living here, growing up here, eating ice cream, Jack, downtown. This is a special place, and I want to be part of it. I want to make Pleasanton better. I want to create a complete digital transformation of our public services. I want to put everything online. I want people to get permits in real time. I want businesses to feel comfortable coming to Pleasanton and knowing that they can get a business permit. I want us to think about growth and development in this new space. COVID has changed everything, and we're going to need expertise across the board. We're going to need lawyers. We're going to need accountants. We're going to need Pleasanton's best to get through this, because we are in unprecedented times and we need to bring expertise to the table. I've been practicing law for 20 years, and I guarantee you the new regulations that are going to come out from the state and federal environments are going to be things we've never seen before. And we should be the first city setting the tone and setting the lead on how those impact us as a community and a city.
Thank you. Candidate Kizalolu.
Yes. Hi, thank you for having me. So I come from a humble background. My family and I came from to US as refugees 4 decades ago. We had Section 8 housing, and back then affordable houses did exist. So we had stable home and we could focus on our education and learning. Those are my circumstances, and I consider myself very fortunate to be in that condition. Today, people work multiple jobs, but it's often not enough. In the Bay Area, the poverty level for a family of 4 is $100,000 or less of an income. As a housing commissioner, I have I have seen a preschool teacher who was sleeping in her car, and she turned out to be my 2-year nephew's teacher, basically, at school. I met a senior citizen who was living in his car, and his children graduated from Amador High School, and he worked on the Open Heart Kitchen, but he couldn't find affordable housing, so he slept in his car. I met school-age children sofa surfing because their parents with multiple jobs could not afford affordable housing in Pleasanton, in our city, a compassionate city. So I'm running here and to address all of these needs of the community. So what we do is, as a compassionate city, we buy school supplies, backpacks, and pay for low-income students field trips. But what these people need is more than anything else is housing, and the community and the families need housing. My high school, my kid who graduated from high school, one of his teachers told him that once you leave this town, remember that you'll never be able to afford anything. So enjoy the last few months here. This is the reality for our children going off to college and not being able to afford housing after college graduation. I personally do not want to go to Sacramento to see or Stockton in my old age to visit my grandkids. So I think we have a problem with system of building essential housing for everybody in Pleasanton, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. And candidate Lee.
Great. First off, I want to thank the Chamber and Pleasanton Weekly for hosting this. My name is Chi-Min Lee, and I'm running for Pleasanton City Council. I'm the son of Hong Kong immigrants, the youngest of 3 siblings. My mom was a single parent raising 3 kids. I was born and raised in San Francisco. Currently the Director of Operations for an environmentally sustainable company. As a proven business leader, I have experience in leading cross-functional teams, experience in balancing multi-million-dollar annual budgets, experience in negotiating the best deal for our organizations I work for. My business acumen will help drive Pleasanton towards a bright future. In 2014, my wife and 2 boys decided to plant roots in Pleasanton. I felt the need to give back to the community. So in 2016, I joined the Pleasanton Economic Vitality Committee. And then in 2019, I joined a nonprofit as a board member. And this year, I joined the National Stewardship Action Council as the advisory committee member. And in my 7 years living in Pleasanton, I felt I've seen a strong focus on business and a disconnect for the small businesses, the community, and the environment. If downtown is the heart of the city, I think we have hard problems. You can drive around and see for lease signs, for sale signs throughout downtown. Alameda County has 12% unemployment. We have traffic problems and there's diversity issues as well. I'm here to fix all of those. I don't accept any developers' money, no special interests, and I run a clean campaign. So if elected, I'll focus on helping small businesses, the community, the environment to drive a bright future for Pleasanton. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to our questions. And Jeremy is going to ask the first one.
All right, thank you. As a reminder, you'll have 90 seconds to respond, and we asked that any rebuttals be saved for your closing remarks. We will continue in alphabetical order, but we will help navigate. I know everybody's grid may well be different. So the first question, we'll start with Valerie Arkin. The COVID-19 health crisis and shelter-in-place orders are entering their 7th month in Pleasanton. How would you like to see the city government aid and protect the many businesses and residents who have been so negatively impacted financially by this pandemic? And how do you feel about businesses reopening?
Thank you for the question. The COVID pandemic has really posed an issue for residents and businesses alike as we navigate a new normal. I do agree with what the City Council has started with the loans to businesses, and they recently increased the amount, giving more to small businesses and even more to downtown businesses. I am in agreement with that and would like to see that continue and maybe explore more ways to help our small businesses. They have also partnered with CityServe to give rental assistance to families in need, and I'm in agreement with that and would like to see more ways we can help residents who are struggling. Possibly partnering with other organizations might be another avenue we should do. Partnering with the county, food assistance for those in need. My work at Hively, we help people with childcare needs and with food and other things in the whole Tri-Valley actually, but Pleasanton. And I think we should continue looking at ways that we can do that. Looking for more ways to get assistance from the state and federal government. I know we can't rely on that, but continuing to look at that, continuing to look at grants. The outdoor dining that has happened downtown, I think is great and is a great way to get our businesses downtown, more people to patronize them. Looking at what other communities are doing is another option I think we should be looking at to see what else we can do. And I like how the city has a very good communication on the website and newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Balch.
Thank you very much for the question. So as we all know, uncertainty kills consumer confidence and it kills business confidence as well. And part of that, or part of getting our economy back on track in the COVID world, is helping to have our local government be stable for businesses and residents to be able to move forward. So with that, I support making appropriate actions now and with haste before struggling businesses and residents slip further over the bankruptcy cliff. I support the grants that the city has done to the nonprofits earlier this year. I support the residential and business assistance programs that the city council implemented. And I definitely want to give support to both the city staff and council for monitoring those programs and seeing that they weren't being taken up as strongly as they had anticipated, and increasing the type and size of businesses now able to take part in those programs. And also, I support implementation of many of things in the downtown specific plan. Many of them were designed for the downtown economic vitality specifically, but would have lasting impact over the entire city of Pleasanton. That could be things like an aggressive shop local campaign, implementing government predictability with design and permitting so that businesses can move forward, and thinking about parking, wayfinding, and other improvements that are listed in the plan, and get working on them now so that businesses have stability in the future. Thank you.
Randy Brown.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for that question. Being the board chair for the Chamber of Commerce, I've worked and also a PDA board member, we worked very hard to get downtown closed down through traffic over the weekends, and then opened up to restaurants and retail. We worked really hard to meet and also send out questionnaires to each business to find out what their take is and what they were, if they were interested, or if they were excited, or if they didn't want it at all. Some of the ones that weren't interested, we actually reached out to them specifically. We had conversations on the board. We wanted to make sure that even if we had to take a one-off approach for each business, we would do so to try to make this work. I'm extremely supportive of the city for what they've done, providing grants and loans to the businesses. It breaks my heart to watch many of these businesses struggle. I work with a lot of downtown businesses being a PDA member, and what the restaurants have done by forming a coalition, I think is brilliant, and reaching out to the retail to try to do cross promoting with each other. And I think we could do a better job with that as a city. The city has done a great job by putting a map out of who's open so they can drive business there. But if we promote, like Jack said, you know, I'm running out of time. If we can promote, well, I'm out of time, sorry.
All right, thank you. Jared Buna. I think you have yourself muted.
Pleasanton did a great thing early on by providing financial resources to people who need them and businesses who need them. So obviously that was a great move. That's likely going to need to continue. It can't continue forever. So we need to be thinking proactively about how do we work in this new future state. Many of the services, we talked about this a moment ago, many of the services that we have currently sitting in the City Hall need to go online, and they need to be available for our citizens and our businesses to utilize. These services exist in other cities. We can leverage those. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. I spent 7 years at Apple working with technology. We have a lot of really talented people who live in this city who will happily assist us with this effort because they benefit. Thinking about planning long-term, this COVID environment is not going away. All of our plans need to take into consideration the new space we're in. Luckily, Pleasanton is a space in an area that has been designed with open environments, which benefits us when you start to roll out services and products in open space areas. So the downtown, having that downtown open during the weekend and for all of our restaurants to utilize the main street, I think that should happen every single weekend. It's a great experience, and it's a future state. So we need to be thinking about how do we plan and think about environments in this new outdoor environment, in a COVID environment. So funding is another big part, and seeking federal funding for Valley Link is a big part of my first 90 days.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Zarina Kizalulu.
Yes, hi. So, you know, I watched the Mayoral Forum a few weeks ago, and they talked about doing a lot of good things with the Chamber of Commerce. And so they have taken care of the small businesses in downtown. I think those things are already in place, and everybody else spoke about it, so I'm not going to go over it. But what I am seeing more than anything else is that we could, with the capital improvement project, we could start the downtown vitality and establish that and start the new library. And basically what is happening right now is people don't have the money. So if we could help the community members and get them into stable housing, and their anchor is their homes, and then put money on, they have the money and they have the jobs, then they can, obviously they will spend. And if you look at the whole area, there's a plan, Bay Area 2050. So the Metropolitan, the MTC and ABAC, they're gonna approve this plan for the growth of the region altogether, for the housing, economic, environment, the transportation, all of that is included in that plan. So with that plan, looking forward to that plan and working through the plan, I think the region, housing becomes again a huge factor in that. So if we, because environment is affected by it, we're gonna get high pollution because of if people are commuting long distances, you're gonna increase amount of, green gas emission. So when essential workers are commuting 60 to 130 miles each way to come to work in Pleasanton, in other cities, that causes a lot of freeway congestion and overall increases the greenhouse gas emission in the air. So these pollutions causes long-term climate effect and causes severe drought and for years to come, and basically makes this place more fire resistant, more vulnerable to being in fires. So if we look at everything, it comes back to housing. We have to make sure people are housed and help them, and then help the small businesses. So the essential workers, housing is number one, and that's part of the Plan Bay Area 2050.
Thank you. Chi-Min Lee.
Yes, so I agree with everyone else that Pleasanton has done a great job with the small business loans. They just recently bumped it up. But I don't think that's enough, and also there's too much focus on downtown area. I think there's more businesses throughout Pleasanton. Downtown has a special privilege where, we closed off the streets, it helped out all of the restaurants. But what about the other businesses in Pleasanton, right? What have we done there? We haven't really done a lot to really help them out. So I propose to start a task force, right, of people that understand and knows how to navigate the COVID-19 rules and regulations. That task force could help guide these small businesses that could be just a sole proprietor. They don't have the time to go navigate all these rules. Let's guide them, help them, look for grants, look for loans, and try to just open up and find solutions to open up, right? I spoke to this person that owned the gym. He was struggling just to get a permit so that he could host these outdoor gym events. And this task force could help someone else like that. And I think that we need to do more. And this task force, I feel like, is the way to go to help all the other businesses in Pleasanton. Thanks.
Thank you. And to wrap up this question, Nancy Allen.
This is the worst crisis that most of us have ever seen, and we need to do more. On the business side, I agree with what everyone said. The city has done a lot with loans, with closing down the streets. I also went to the PDA and I asked what else we could do, and they said we need a dedicated person to help us manage our pending permits. So I got them someone from the planning department to be their single point of contact. For my campaign, I developed a preferential preference program, and everything is purchased locally as long as I can get it for 15% of what I would get it online for, because we need to support our small businesses. I love that we closed down the street, and I think we need to look at our learnings from that, because I think it's a step that we could take further to close them down more and use it as a way to bring our community together. But I'm especially concerned about the personal side and the mental health side because of the stress that's being created in our community, and people are anxious and scared. I would like to look at things like, how can we leverage our parks for safe circles, for example, to do art, to do music, maybe yoga classes. How can we leverage downtown and maybe have themes each month? It could be a theme around Mardi Gras or Cinco de Mayo, you know, at different months, and bring cooking and bring connection and bring restaurants all together and get the community out like we've been doing the last 2 months. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, on to question 2. And candidate Balch will start us off with this one. The other major storyline this spring and summer has been social justice reform. As a Pleasanton City Council member, what actions will you take? What policies will you recommend to affect positive change in community policing and criminal justice? Specifically, address reallocating funds from the police department budget for mental health services, and your thoughts on an oversight commission.
So thank you for the question. I understand that it is a hot topic at this time. So I will first start by saying that I do not want to defund the police department, and I do not want to see any reduction of officers on the street that are already there today. Response times are critical, and I would agree that if you were a victim, you would want a quick response time as well. We live in an affluent area, and unfortunately, many of us have been touched by crime, possibly as minor as porch theft, but smash and grabs or worse. Our police department works 24/7 for this community and are committed to our safety. They challenge themselves to do better, as we've heard through the current workshops, and I think they are a professional organization and they are doing a great job. I do not support a citizens oversight board that would become politicized and fiercely argued over at every mayor that would appoint someone to it. We need to look no further than Oakland for an example of this. Rather, I do believe that our city council is our oversight board. I support the city council having a more active involvement in the role and would allow direct accountability to the voters of Pleasanton by this method. Thank you.
Candidate Brown.
Well, to start with, and thank you for bringing that question up. I think it's really critical going with what's going on in the world today, specifically the country. We aren't necessarily experiencing that here in Pleasanton, but public safety is #1 in my eyes in Pleasanton. So I certainly would not want to jeopardize that, and I wouldn't want to experiment with defunding our police department and reallocating funds. I support completely funding our officers and keeping the officers on staff. I do believe that having a mental health professional, and the council is doing a really good job of researching that and looking at different options. I think those are great ideas, but I also believe that even on a mental health call, that an armed officer should be present. I have a story with my grandmother. She was attacked and stabbed by a mental health call, and she wouldn't be here today. So public safety is #1. Citizen oversight, I think that's politicizing the police department, and I'm not for that. I think that the city council is the perfect revenue or the outlet for that. We are elected officials. I think that tightening that up and working directly with the police and looking at that the city council would be the best person for that job. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bonio?
Thank you. So to start, I'm not in support of a citizens oversight committee. that those have not been successful in many cities. Oakland, Berkeley, BART, over and over again, those committees have actually turned into a very political element that adds to the complexity of solving the problem. And there are problems. There's no doubt about it. There are diversity problems. There are mental health issues. So specific to Pleasanton, we do need to fund the city police force, and we need to add mental health professionals to their repertoire so they have the skills and the talents to deal with these complex issues. But the mental health issue is not the only one. We're seeing across the country people of color scared of the police, and that's real. And it starts with leadership and it starts with diversity. What's so great about this particular election more than any other election, and I think this is the most diverse group of people who have ever run for Pleasanton. And Pleasanton is a diverse place. It has different cultures, different backgrounds, different religions. It is a diverse place, and it continues to get diverse, and it will continue to get diverse. So as a city council, we need to reflect that. We need to think about it. And believe it or not, diverse bodies of people make better decisions. We've seen that in the private sector, and we've seen that in the public sector. So I would encourage people to consider bringing other people on the council that typically don't get elected. The other piece I'll mention is my father was a police officer. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world. So I commend their work. They've got a lot of things they have to deal with, but we should support them and give them an opportunity to learn from things that have happened in the past so they're better off going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Kizalolu.
Yes, hi. So what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter and the movement of Black Lives Matter is something that we have to see that this is part of this community as well. We're not isolated. We don't live in a bubble. So my son has a high school friend who's Black, his best friend. And my son was telling me that there's token 4 or 5 Black students in the whole school. And when they drove, if he was driving and he saw a car behind him in Pleasanton, he would pull over on a car and on the side street and wait until the cop passed, and then he would go back on the road. He would be shaking and scared that the cop is gonna shoot him. My son would say, look, I'm white, nothing's gonna happen to you, but that was not assurance for him, okay? So what we have in here, we have a segregated area. We have crisis of housing and segregation of communities. We have a white community, we have a Black community. That doesn't work in the world, okay? Segregation creates concentrated areas of poverty, inequitable access to education, economic, environment, and other opportunities for minorities, Blacks, and Latinos. That is our issue. We have to face it as a community. You can't hide it behind this, that we're not gonna oversight, we don't want this. This is our issue. You have to look at the world, and we have to look at America all together. Black Lives Matter, and it's happening in here, and we have to face it. So, we have to deal with the issue of housing and inequality. That's what they want. That's what we need to do. If it means police changing things, I'm not saying defund the police, but if it means changing things around, we should be able to work with them. It's only fair.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yes, I agree with Serena. The inequality is a huge issue now, and it's bad for our environment. I grew up in San Francisco. 40% of the students there were Black. I grew up with Black students, and I grew up with them. I feel like there is this bias that we have in our police force, but Pleasanton's police has been doing well. I don't support defunding police, but I do support having a police policy review committee similar to our current committees that report and give advice to the city council. I think that would be helpful when they could review all the policy, maybe all the cases that went through with the police force, and offer suggestions to the city council. Second thing is mental health. Mental health is, one of the biggest problems in the nation now, really. Pre-COVID, back then, you heard about a lot of folks just shooting up schools and areas, and most of those folks had some mental health issues. And I think we need to highlight that in Pleasanton. We're not protected by some bubble. We have to acknowledge it and put programs in place so that we can solve it. And I think that, we just need to make it happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Allen. You're muted. There.
Thank you. I had a little frozen situation there. I'm proud of our police department, but we need to continually look at how we can improve. I do not want to defund the police. I think it's important we keep our 4-minute response time and keep our community safe. But we've not looked at our police department in over 20 years publicly. And I think the questions that are being asked are fair, and we need to take it seriously. So here's my approach. I reached out to understand all perspectives. I've talked to the chief. I've talked to captains, students, residents of old, young, all races, to understand the perspectives, and they are diverse. I've spoke at council meetings about 3 areas that are important to me and I think the community, which we've touched on. One is new models for looking at healthcare, and there seems to be broad support for that. There's been a lot of cities that have done good things there. I think the question will be, to what degree are the police involved with most of these, or to what degree do the police partner with mental health experts on these calls? And we need to understand what makes sense for us. Second, I think we need to look at the school resource officers and the DARE program and look at how it's accomplishing the goals and if there's areas for improvement. And finally, on oversight, I think we definitely need to have oversight for any department, any large department, but I think that needs to be done by the council in their role, and there needs to be ongoing reporting with public feedback on an ongoing basis. And finally, on campaign funding, I'm not taking any endorsements or funding from the police department. I think we as candidates need to be neutral on this, and our public needs to know that we have no biases around police funding. Thank you.
Candidate Arkin.
Thank you. Having a high regard for our police and wanting oversight and transparency is not mutually exclusive. I respect the work of our police, and I know how hard of a job they have. My brother is a police officer currently, and he's been a police officer for over 30 years. So I probably have a better understanding than many of the job. We all want a safe community, no doubt. I think any public agency funded with taxpayer dollars has to have oversight and transparency. Evaluating police policies, which haven't been done in over 20 years, is a must, and I'm glad the city's taken a step in that direction. I think advocating for additional training for our police officers, crisis intervention training, implicit bias training, diversity training is needed, and that'd be a continual thing. Oversight by the city council is absolutely needed, and unlike what some of my fellow candidates have said, there is no oversight by the city council currently. That is not acceptable, and that has to change. Adding mental health professionals is an absolute must in order to handle people that are in crisis, and in order to keep us all safe. It's a burden on police officers to handle those types of situations, so why not have some professionals that have the expertise in that field assist? Regarding an oversight commission, my answer is I don't know. I would like that could be something we could explore. I've done it on the school board. You can do it with fidelity. You could have a retired police officer and a broad spectrum of the business community and other people in the community on a committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Third question, we will start with Randy Brown, and let's talk housing. Given that Pleasanton's regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA, obligation, is likely to be, or could well be, between 4,000 and 5,000 new units, how would you go about identifying locations that could accommodate these units? And how do you view the east side and the mall site with regard to RHNA and housing?
Jeremy, thank you for that. That's an important topic today, being that this council that's elected will be facing that exact question and that exact thing. I certainly think that the east side is something that we are going to look at. I believe that what we need to do is look at the entire city and have a balanced plan to try to grow and fill those RHNA numbers in a balanced idea as the best we can. We certainly have the ability to look at the mall for some of that. We will have to look at the east side, I'm sure, for some of that as well, but there are other sites that I think that we could put together a task force and look at to see what is available and try to balance that out, because we don't want to have any one area to be overburdened with too much growth and stress the infrastructure. I don't think that it would cause traffic issues. It would cause issues with the schools. So we need to look at the city as a whole, and again, balance it out and to fulfill those numbers. And it's something that we have to do. I don't believe in trying to fight the state on that. I certainly think that through committees that we can try to challenge them and work with them, because we are different than San Francisco. But the arena numbers, that we're facing, we're going to have to take control and make that plan before the state takes that control away from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared Buna.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. We have some legal requirements here that require us to include affordable housing in Pleasanton. East Pleasanton is our best opportunity. It is the best place for us to create a new environment, a second downtown that includes both retail and housing that can be affordable to those families who want to come back to Pleasanton. Stone Ridge is not an option. In order to put these new homes in, you're going to have to add a school. There is no space near Stone Ridge to add a school. So adding significant housing to the Stone Ridge area is not an option. East Pleasanton is the option. And we should start quickly to create a plan that everybody's happy with, because Pleasanton is going to continue to evolve, and it requires us to think strategically and thoughtful about what these spaces look like. Mixed use is a solution that many cities have integrated into their environments and with great success. Great restaurants come to mixed use, great recreational spaces come to mixed use, and we can be thinking about these spaces in a post-COVID environment that includes parks and open spaces. The Ebola virus hit the European community in the 14th century, and maze parks became a thing. We could create a maze park in this space where people could walk around and be socially distanced. Those are the kind of things we need to think about in this new second downtown in East Pleasanton.
Thank you. Zarina Kizalulu.
So in the last RENA numbers, we were assigned in the last cycle, 2014 to 2022, we were assigned about 2,000 homes. Out of those 2,000 homes, the Pleasanton built 1,187 luxury homes and 304 affordable homes. And so with that, where we were supposed to build 1,100 affordable homes and 500 luxury homes. So we are really behind on the numbers of affordable homes. So we have to develop around in East Pleasanton and other areas as well, in order to accommodate the number. It's going to be probably more than 4,000 to 5,000, more than 5,000 homes to be developed in the next cycle. So if we want to keep our local control, we have to build these homes, and we have to make sure that affordable. So there's 4 categories: very low, low income, moderate, and market rate. So we are only good at making market rate homes, and the rest of them are left behind. So we have to make more of the lower income homes. This is something that we have to, this is part of reality of being in Pleasanton in the market that we are in. So any way that we can find in accordance with the general plan, and also if we have to rezone, we have to rezone, but working through the East Pleasanton and the rest, and we should be able to make the numbers.
Thank you. Chimin Lee.
Yeah, the RENA numbers, I think there's a lot of opportunities. We have Stone Ridge, we can build high density housing there. We have the East Pleasanton, there's opportunities there as well. And also, maybe even partnering with Workday. They have some property that they built. Maybe they're interested in building some high density homes, partnering with the city. But I feel like affordable housing is something that we have really lacked, and we should build affordable housing because it's the right thing to do. The poverty rate is, I think it was like 100, I forget what the poverty rate for low income is, but it's really high. And I think that we should, as a city, support affordable housing and make it more accessible for young families. Right now, the homes are $1 million a pop, so it's difficult for young families to move in. Another thing about affordable housing is that there's this in lieu fee that developers can pay to get out of affordable or building affordable housing. As a city council member, I would get rid of that fee or make it so high that it is just not practical for them to not build affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you. Nancy Allen.
Yes. This will definitely be one of the most important decisions that this council makes in terms of how to allocate our housing. I believe we need to look at the entire city and also do this through a public, transparent process. I thought the model that was used a number of years ago after we lost the lawsuit was an excellent model. It looked at balance, but it also heavily weighted properties based on their distance to public transportation. Because ideally, we want to minimize the amount of traffic within the city and try to keep traffic on the outskirts and near public transportation where possible. I believe we need to focus housing in areas first, like BART, like the Hacienda Business Park, perhaps the Workday site that they recently bought where the Office Depot was, and because that land, they may choose not to build on that land and they may want to sell that land, and that may be a prime opportunity as well. East Pleasanton should be part of the plan. I'm concerned about the location of East Pleasanton for a large amount of the housing. And I completely agree with candidate Lee about today we can do something immediately, and that is stop taking in lieu fees. We could have built about 75 more homes if we built them as part of our inclusionary zoning versus take in lieu fees. And we need to start doing that immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Arkin.
Yes, thank you. Well, regarding the east side, when the task force was in place quite a few years ago, I attended all of those meetings. And one thing I advocated there was the developers providing land for a school and helping to build the school, since that would really impact student enrollments. We need to keep concentrating on keeping our high quality schools, because that's the #1 reason people move to Pleasanton. So with the east side, I mean, I know there's going to be some plan there. I don't know exactly what that plan entails yet, so I can't comment on whether I'm in favor of that or not yet. I think the mall area is a good place for housing for a number of reasons. That it is near transportation hubs, it's near BART, near 2 freeways. There's no impact to existing residents. And that area was designed to handle higher amounts of traffic. One of the things I've always been in favor of when it comes to housing is we have to mitigate the impacts to schools, traffic, and water. Those are very important, and that's something I would continue to do as a city council member. Affordable housing, there is a great need for it, whether it's, there are high density housing. I like inclusionary housing, what we've done, mixing it with market rate housing. Senior housing's another one. Possibly, adults with special needs housing could also be one. I also don't like in lieu fees. I think we need to build affordable when we can. Mixed use, I'm also in favor of too. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final respondent, Jack Balch.
Thank you very much. I agree that this is probably a significant question for the next council. So while you've heard different opinions here, mine is that while I'll continue to support local control and argue for it at the state level, I believe we must plan now for our community for how we will accommodate the RHNA number. I strongly believe not a single location in our community could accommodate this number by itself. There is no silver bullet. We must identify potential locations. That is, locations that are near transit or can be accommodating school, water, or other elements such as traffic. We need to understand what housing density is as a community. Many times in Pleasanton along Las Positas Road, we've built 30 units per acre. As a planning commissioner, I'm extremely familiar with this. But the planning commission has heard that they can build 45 per acre, and then that would allow subterranean parking so that you would actually have a better product that I think Pleasanton residents may enjoy better. I do think people talking about the mall are not giving you all the information. And I say that because the Stone Ridge Simon Properties has already come before the Planning Commission with a 486 unit project. So there's already that, and that's out of the settlement from 2010. So we need to be aware of where housing's already dedicated before we just load up other locations for a soundbite. We have to look inclusive and balance it out for our community for traffic, housing, and water. Thank you.
Thank you. On to question 4, and candidate Buna will be answering first. What sort of transportation and roadway projects would you prioritize within the city and in the Tri-Valley region at large? Have your views changed at all in light of the pandemic and economic downturn and their impact on things like jobs, commuting, public transit, and government funding?
Thank you for the question. So yes, I think the pandemic has changed how we all live, from our kids and where they go to school to where do we work. I've literally been on this Zoom thing for the last 8 months for work, for social, for everything. I mean, everything has changed. So traffic patterns have changed, where people work has changed. We need to take that into consideration when we're building out plans. I think there's also opportunity here. People are leaving cities right now and buying homes in Pleasanton because of what we've been doing for the last 50 years. It's a great place to live. I think we should continue to reinforce that, continue to build up our culture, continue to think about strategic planning. I think the East Pleasanton side is a wonderful place to build a second downtown with great restaurants and great housing. I think the Valley Link is a big thing we need to solve as a city council in the next year. I think there's funding opportunities from the federal government to fund transportation that is COVID compliant. There are a number of requirements. We talked about this. As a lawyer, I know there are always many different ways to look at things, and I'm going to advocate for Pleasanton and look out for what's best for Pleasanton in much the same way for the last 20 years I've been advocating for my clients. The idea what is essential and what is not essential. I mean, every job is essential, but it takes a requirement. It takes a city or a state or a government to stand up for those people and make decisions. And I'm going to do that for Pleasanton. And every time I have an opportunity to interpret something.
Sorry, I
know. A lot.
Candidate Kizalolu.
Hi, thanks. So, Vision 2050 Plan Bay Area has included the Valley link from Lathrop to here. But I just want to say that would help, it might help with the easement of the traffic and, being electrically charged, that will help. But it doesn't solve the housing crisis, and it doesn't help with the essential workers commuting long distances. They have no family life, and their kids are neglected and they're on the road all the time. So I do support the Valley Link, and I think it's a good move to reduce the traffic, but it's not a foolproof project that can be done. There should be other things in conjunction with Valley Link in order to drop the number of cars on the road. So we will have, less of an environmental effect, and more people are, closer to the job. So, but we all have to do our fair share. So I'm going to bring my pitch in. So we all have to do our fair share of building affordable housing. We cannot let go of, doing the minimum and trying to find loopholes to get away with doing that. But, what I want to see is really the new fee. We voted against it, but the council picked up on it against us. No, we're gonna continue in Luffy. I was the first one to say we don't want in Luffy, okay? Because that's affecting our low affordable homes. So basically, well, that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yes, transportation. So I think the work environment is going to start moving towards remote. A lot of companies are saying that their workforce is more efficient doing remote work. And it makes sense, right? As businesses save money, more workers are working online, so they get instant access. But there's the sort of demographic that they can't do remote work. The laborers, the people that actually need to go in and provide great customer service. So I feel like we definitely need to improve our infrastructure. Public transportation is one easy way to do it. The Valley Link, I'm not so sure about Valley Link because I read in the proposal that they're thinking about putting in these diesel trains. And I think we need to look at, electric trains maybe, or maybe even putting electric buses with Wi-Fi on that route, so that we could save, like, I don't know, half a billion dollars what they were estimating for that whole project. So I would say just look at more practical solutions to providing easy to use transportation for workers to travel throughout the Bay Area. Yeah, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Allen?
Yes, hi. I would like to, I'll discuss this in terms of improving local circulation as well as then regional. Locally, I think we just need to make practical decisions that can improve circulation and reduce travel time. So for example, adding a lane to Hop Yard Road near Chick-fil-A is something that's on the drawing board but not funded. That will improve traffic. It will make that area a lot safer. We just approved money for improving the intersection by Sunol and Bernal. And that's an important thing because there's backups right now. I think the big local question will be El Charro. And what do we do with El Charro as the East Pleasanton is built out? And that will be very controversial. So it's critical we get the right data and we have strong public discussions so that everyone can understand the trade-offs in making that decision, and it won't be easy. It will be similar to, I think, the decision we had to make with Stone Ridge Drive. Some people will win and some will lose, but what's the best answer for the city? Regionally, Highway 84 is funded and should be built in the next 2 to 3 years, knock on wood. Valley Link, I think, is important. It will take about 90,000 commuters off the road, which will reduce our cut-through traffic. And then long term would be the flyover 580, 680, again, to help people save time and be less inclined to want to cut through Pleasanton on their way to San Jose and other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Arkin?
Thank you. One thing I would advocate for is extending BART to Livermore. I think that has been kind of on the horizon, but it's not getting a lot of traction yet. So that would be one thing I think would be good to advocate for. Valley Link, I don't know, I think BART to Livermore would be better than Valley Link because people don't want to change systems. When people have to change systems from Valley Link and then get onto BART into the Tri-Valley coming from Central Valley, they're less likely to want to use that as a transportation method. So I would be more in favor of BART to Livermore. Lane expansion on 580 and 680 is something that I think we need to continue to advocate for. Expanding the ACE train possibly. It's been mentioned, the Highway 84 to Livermore, that needs to be done and finished. I would like to see that happen. Let's see, what else? Just as a local issue, just better timing of our lights in town, I think would be really good, as well as expanding bike lanes in town would really help. Lastly, I'd like to also kind of hear from the community on this and see what the community would prefer, since everybody's affected by the traffic in town here. So I'd be interested in either having a committee or something like that. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Balch?
Thank you very much. So I'll talk both regionally and locally. So on a regional level, I've already spoken in public with the MTC to support Valley Link, and I think it is essential. We have service workers, police, and others that need to be able to come over and do that efficiently and remove cars from 580 corridor. I have also supported Highway 84. I think we need to complete that out, and frankly, we need to be looking at the next lane and when that's going in right after it, as soon as they're done with this one. If the east side comes up, the El Charro conversation occurs. The other thing is, as we move more locally, I look at our traffic throughout our city as well. We have plans on the horizon at the Planning Commission. One of those that I've spoken twice for is I want to make sure while the state is facing its budget shortfall, we have secured the funds from the state to build the Stone Ridge Mall to 680 North interchange, because that is not subject to the lawsuit. And I've asked staff to make sure that whatever the city needs to do so that those funds don't get reallocated by the state, we are doing now. The other thing is, for our downtown, I support buying pocket lots or having the city look at pocket lots to spread throughout our linear downtown so that it can be used by businesses and employees and guests equally. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Brown.
Thank you, Gina, for such a controversial question. I'm sure this is a very important one because traffic has come up many times in many conversations. And I agree with Jack that, and many of the other candidates, Valley Link is essential to something that we need to work on. I would love to have BART go and deliver more, but I believe BART said no, they won't do it. So we'll do the next best thing, which is we'll put Valley Link in. But like Jack had just said, bringing those workers over, especially our first responders over and our teachers over from the San Joaquin Valley is critical in giving them accessibility to this valley. I also believe that working on the ACE train and getting it and doing a better job with and increasing the availability down into the South Bay is a good idea, because that's a horrible commute. 84, like Jack just said, I completely agree. Once we started 84, it already needed another lane, so we need to be looking at another lane. I think accessibility to BART would be a good thing that we could do, is having better parking so that we can get cars off the road there. Technology, I think that we're overlooking technology. It's improving in an exponential rate. So I think that the technology will help improve driverless cars in the near future, so that potentially could take some stress off. And a flyover, 580, 680. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. This will be our fifth and our final question to allow proper time at the end for closing remarks in our window here. Yeah, so our question will start with Zarina Kizalulu. The proposed Costco store is again a central issue of a Pleasanton city election every cycle since 2016. What is your plan to navigate around the obstacles and help the project push toward fruition, or do you oppose Costco proposal for Johnson Drive?
Yeah. So I think the community spoke when they put it on the referendum, it was voted on. So we approved the Costco. Now, my understanding is someone decided to, stop the process. I don't agree with that. I think we should keep the money to Costco in our community. I go to Livermore and I don't want to go to Livermore either because I don't have time, or I just don't want to put my tax money in there. I want to spend it in locally, right? So if we're going to talk about local money, this is the local money. So the site is just sitting idle. It looks ugly. I would love to see the Costco come back and being built. Now, with respect to some money issue that they have $5 million that the city said, that Costco said that they will have to, the city will lend it, or the Costco will lend it, and the city will have to pay back. That issue, I think we can work around it. I'm sure we could, there's some, with the COVID and things being uncertain and Costco being a big company and City of Pleasanton needing some more resources, I think it'll bring employment. It'll make it easier with the traffic, and you don't have to go in, in the traffic and increase pollution in the air and not waste time. So I would really love to see Costco coming, and it's not coming fast enough for me.
Thank you. Chi-Min Lee.
Yeah, I'm in support of Costco. I think that the city, the community has spoken. They voted for Costco, and we need to push it through. It's the second time that Costco has been in this lawsuit, and as a city council member, I would definitely do all I can to push Costco through. I did a next door poll, and over 1,900 residents voted, and 60% of them want a Costco in Pleasanton. And I'm totally supportive of that. Another thing is that Costco, it'll bring big business, and it'll sort of be like this magnet, right? It'll attract small businesses to grow there. It'll supply our small businesses with supplies. You're going to have a ton of tax money for Pleasanton to use in the general fund. Also, jobs, right? Jobs is going to hire a lot of people in that Costco warehouse. But not only that, the kind of trickle down effect, you know, like Costco suppliers, vendors, trucking companies. People are worried about the traffic, but we have great city folks that can figure that stuff out, and we already there is money allocated to expand the freeway entrance as well. So I'm for it.
Thank you. Nancy Allen.
Yes, on Costco, I also supported Costco. The community spoke, and I value that. I was concerned about the mix on how the traffic improvements would be financed, and I would have liked to have had Costco picking up a bigger share of that. As a planning commissioner, that was not an area that we discussed, although I wrote letters to the city council regarding some of my thoughts there. In terms of where we're at with Costco is that the latest decision should be going to a judge this month. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have feedback from the judge on whether Matt Sullivan and his team prevails or whether the city prevails. What I did is I reached out to Matt in April or so, and I learned that he was just getting ready to go into negotiations. Of course, he couldn't say anything to me, but I gave him thoughts from my perspective about where I thought there could be a win-win. That wasn't achieved. So what come December now, if the city prevails, then so be it, we move forward and we move forward quickly. But if it doesn't prevail, I would sit down with the opponents to really understand what the issues are and how we can come to a win-win, because the last thing we want is a third lawsuit, is to not do the next set right if we lose this one. So I think we need to make sure the next EIR, if we lose, is done right and that we have a win-win solution and build it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Arkin.
Yes, thank you. Like some others have said, the voters approved the Costco in town here. So with that ballot measure, I am supportive of Costco being here. I think, Costco, I'm a very frequent shopper of Costco, and I think it's a great business to have in Pleasanton. I think if we're going to put a business like Costco in Pleasanton, that's probably the best location for it. It's next to a freeway. There's not a lot of impact to existing residents and that sort of thing. So that I think is all a good thing for Costco. With the environmental impact report and with the traffic impacts, I would like to see, that is one caveat I would say, is that the traffic impacts need to be addressed. That's probably one of the biggest issues that has come up with Costco, and I would like to see more of how they are going to address that issue. Also with the fees that the city is loaning, I guess, the Costco, and they're not paying for the entire thing themselves. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I really think Costco should be paying that. It is setting a precedent in town here since we've never done that before. And so then it begs the question, are we going to do that with every business coming here? And that could become a really big financial burden on the city of Pleasanton, especially when some businesses, you might not know what kind of tax revenues they're going to produce as going forward, especially during COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Balch.
So we talk here about the Pleasanton voters voted to let Costco through. I am a Pleasanton voter, and I voted no on MM because I do support Costco, and I am not shy to say it. So the traffic improvements must be done before Costco comes in. It's not subject to the lawsuit of Mr. Sullivan, and only the EIR is. So as a planning commissioner, I voted in favor of the revised EIR, and I'm on record supporting Costco. In terms of the traffic to be built before Costco is allowed to open, that's what I just said earlier, where I supported making sure the city today is working to secure the funding, which is coming from the state, to increase the Stone Ridge Drive to northbound 680 bridge. And we need to be continuing to be aware that state funds are going to be scarce in the future and securing those now. I do support the Johnson Drive economic zone in totality. It will bring a diversified tax base in sales tax revenue to the city. With the mall closing, it's essential that we diversify our sales tax base. Furthermore, the hotels that will come to the site, once we reinstate the transient occupancy tax, would help diversify the city's revenue funds. We need to be looking as diverse and as broad as we can. I would be working to try to make sure we address all the issues and try to get that done soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Brown.
Thank you, Jeremy. I am a Pleasanton voter as well, and I voted in favor of Costco or opposed the measure so that Costco could come in as well. I love that. There are approximately 24,000 households that have Costco memberships, and overwhelmingly it was decided that the residents here want Costco. I completely support that. I think when the residents speak, that we should listen, because that's how this country was founded. I also think, am excited about having the gas station here, having all of those cars that drive over to Livermore and take their money with them and spend it there and then leave their tax dollars there, I think is a huge travesty. And I think that bringing it over here is something we need to do. I also am excited about working on that JEDZ zone improvements right away as well, because we have hotels that want to come in. In a normal situation, once COVID is gone, we are going to be looking at ways to increase revenues to pay for some of the programs that we had. And that's one of the ways that we can, is because the hotels are going to bring a tax. There's a lot of other things that we can do, and we can help them mitigate. They can also help mitigate those traffic improvements as well. So I am for Costco and the development going on there, and I'm excited to see that shovel go in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Jared Buna.
Thank you. So I worked at Costco when I was in high school, warehouse 126. So I have a long history with Costco. Actually negotiated with Jim Sinegal, the CEO of Costco, tough negotiator. The voters have spoken. Costco is coming in. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't know how many times I heard the word lawsuit tonight, but I think I've heard it probably like 15 times. The city council needs a lawyer. I think Pleasanton gets sued more than any other city in the Valley. I can't explain it. It's something we need to figure out. We need expertise on the council. We need to get through this stuff. I don't know how much money we've spent with law firms or on settlements, but I can imagine the number's high. It's probably highly confidential. But we need legal counsel here, not just for future state post-COVID stuff, but literally just the litigation file in front of us. It's critical. So yeah, I think Costco is great for me personally and for the community.
All right, thank you. As I mentioned, that is the end of our question portion. We will now move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to provide a closing statement. We're going to keep you on your toes, and we're going to go reverse alphabetical in fairness with how we deliver the opening statements. So we'll start at the end alphabetically. Chi-Min Lee.
I wanted to add two things. We currently do have legal counsel for the city, and as the city attorney, he represents or he offers counsel to the city council. Also, the second thing is mental health for the mental health program. I think that police officers should also go through like a quarterly mental health check. I'll just leave it at that. So my closing statements, the city of Pleasanton have done a great job with bringing large corporations, big businesses, and improving the economy. They attracted large corporations like Workday, Costco, 10X Genomics, to name a few, but there's been too much focus on big business. We need someone in the city council that has no ties to big business or developers in order to negotiate the best deal for our community and our environment. I'm that person. I will fight for the best deal. I'll fight for the community. I'll fight for the best interests of the people and the environment in Pleasanton. I have a clean money campaign, no developers, no special interests, is all funded by family, friends, and the voters of Pleasanton and the residents of Pleasanton. My goal is to refocus on the community, small business, and local environment. COVID is here to stay. We need to support businesses and families through this pandemic. We need to develop a plan to move forward and not wait for the state to plan it for us. We need to work with schools to work with school district to make it safe for teachers and students to go back to school. Pleasanton is not a small town anymore. It's at 81,000. We're actually a large city, and we have large city infrastructure needs. And we need a growth plan that matches our large city to maintain that small town character. We need to innovate for Pleasanton, get us into the 21st century. Let's bring technology, innovation in to help improve our infrastructure. We also need to protect our local environment, our water, our natural resources. It's not okay that we have chemicals in our drinking water that could cause cancers and other health problems. We need to protect all of our open spaces from development. If elected, I will fight for the community, small business, and environment so that we can all have a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. Zarina Kizalulu.
Yes, thank you. So COVID-19 and the movement of Black lives have made it clear and show how our housing policies are systematically harming people of color and getting in the way of Bay Area as we all want to live in. Segregation creates concentrated areas of poverty and inequitable access to education, economic, environment, and other opportunities for minorities, Black and Latinx residents. It allows exclusive cities to hoard and unfairly share public and private resources while continuing to block affordable housing. As the City of Pleasanton Council, I will make sure that we do our fair share of RHNA requirements while preserving our open space in Ridge Hills. When 47,000 workers commute to work in Pleasanton, we increase greenhouse gas emissions, which is detrimental to the region and environment, building homes closer to work so people can walk or ride bikes to save our environment from fires and droughts. Families will also have time to participate. Diverse communities are able to participate in government, school activities and be involved more in civic engagement. We need to create diversity and inclusive department to address the needs of diverse community members. That's basically when you're making on the phase one, the new community center, I would like to see a community of diversity and inclusion. We should help our police officers and not burden them with mental health and social work activities. We definitely need mental health workers in there. As I said earlier, and the next opportunity time for a CIP project, I would like to see that we have large library and meeting rooms with, with meeting rooms and the 21st century, all the new Wi-Fi and open space, just like the one in Livermore. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. We have helped downtown small businesses, and I think we can continue doing that, but I worry about the people, the community members who are sofa surfing, the students who don't have homes, and the community members at large. I think we should watch out for the ones who are nobody is representing in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared Buna.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you, Jeremy, for this opportunity. And thank you to the team. I have met some, but this is the first time I've met Jack, Val, and actually we've actually met many times, but I think Randy as well. So thank you. It's great to meet you guys. You're right, Chiman. There is an attorney that works for the city council. What I'm talking about is a little bit different. The council doesn't work for the city attorney. A lot of the decisions that are made at the city council level are about interpreting laws, creating laws. It makes a lot of sense to have an attorney as part of a group. I'm not saying we need 5 attorneys. I'm just saying we need 1. And I think it's important, especially in this new COVID environment. Local control has always been critical to our success. Pleasanton has designed and built a beautiful city that people want to be at. And you can see that by the prices. The prices of homes are not going down, they're only going up. I know this because the last 25 years, I've been looking at it and hoping one of these years it would go down, I can come back. It just keeps going up. I finally had to make the call and say, I'm just gonna dive in. So yeah, this is a community people wanna be at because there's been planning throughout the last many years. We need to continue that. Local control is critical. In this post-COVID environment, the federal and state regulators are going to pass laws requiring cities to do certain things. We as a city need to make a decision. Are those things we want to follow or are they not? The Constitution of the United States says we have the right to assemble. We have the right to practice our religion. We have the right to freedom of speech. You have to ask yourself in this COVID environment, are those things being tested? I would argue they are. And we as an institution, we as a city, we as a citizen of the United States need to ask ourselves, are we protected against rules and regulations that go against the Constitution, among other things? That's just an example. We on the City Council are going to have those decisions and have those debates in the next many months. And we need an attorney sitting there who can make decisions and can think about these things from a holistic perspective. It's something I've been doing for 20 years, and I'm excited for the opportunity to be a representative of Pleasanton's City Council and to fight for the city of Pleasanton in a way that I think it's needed in the next many months. Infrastructure is fundamental. I mentioned this earlier, that we need to think about our infrastructure. We need to think about the COVID environment. I'm going to assert and push in the first 90 days an assessment of Pleasanton's functionality, all of its services, and I'm going to do an audit to see which services can go online, and so we can digitize a lot of these things so people can access these services from their homes, from locations that are out of the city, so that Pleasanton is more mobile and more accessible than ever before. I humbly ask for your support, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with this great group of people. Cheers.
Thank you. Randy Brown.
Thank you, Jeremy. My campaign is a grassroots campaign. My contributors have been small businesses, friends, and friends of friends. Being a Rotarian, a past president, and my job, being a real estate professional, has required me to have integrity. My reputation is the most valuable asset that I have. I think that taking a couple $100 from a donor or for contributor is ridiculous to think that they're buying my vote. Our future requires leaders with a deep sense of integrity, leaders who embrace a collaborative spirit and who approach each situation with an unbiased perspective. Oh, hang on, sorry. I am eager to bring my unique background of military experience and leadership coupled with the community volunteerism to the role of the City Council. I'm eager to make decisions based on the greater good of Pleasanton and ensure our processes are transparent and equitable. I'm excited to work with all parts of our community, and I'm excited for the bright future ahead. I'm Randy Brown. Please vote for me on November 3rd and go to my website, randyforpleasanton.com. And I want to especially thank the Pleasanton Weekly and the Chamber of Commerce for putting this together for all of Pleasanton to be able to see who we are and see what we stand for. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Balch.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to thank the Pleasanton Weekly and the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight's forum. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for their willingness to serve. As I said initially, it's very encouraging. I understand that for the voter, it may be difficult to distinguish the difference between all of us candidates. All of us love this town, the schools, the public safety first responders, and open space. We fiercely love our downtown, hate traffic, and think mental health and affordable housing are important. What distinguishes me here tonight is my accounting expertise and my 11-year civic record on the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Planning Commission. I believe civic experience matters for our service here on the Pleasanton City Council, and I have an 11-year voting record of putting Pleasanton first. There is no doubt that we have complex issues to address in the future. I understand the numbers, I understand how our city operates, and I'm ready to serve. Day one. I ask for your vote on November 3rd. Pleasanton is an amazing community. We have growing diversity and an exciting future. Yes, even in COVID. Thank you for all being a part of our community's story. Please consider volunteering on a city commission or committee or attending a city meeting and making your voice heard. Everyone's voice matters to make our future vibrant. To learn more about me, please visit my website at jackforpleasanton.com. Thank you for your consideration, and please vote early and vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Valerie Arkin.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And thank you to our hosts, and thank you to my fellow candidates for participating tonight. I am Valerie Arkin, and I am ready to be your advocate on the City Council. I've been involved in city issues for over 25 years. My priorities again are smart growth that minimizes impacts to schools, traffic, and water, protecting our scenic hillsides, safe drinking water, supporting our award-winning school district, preserving the small town charm of our downtown, supporting policies that keep us all safe, and COVID recovery for residences and small businesses. I'm also interested in exploring building a new library and community center, and I can speak to that as a former library commissioner. Supporting our award-winning educational system is paramount. I will advocating for strengthening the partnership between the city and the school district in order to continue our high-quality education system that has been the pride of our city. With my 12 years on the school board, I've been elected 3 times. I've been president of the school board 3 times, vice president 3 times. I've worked as a team and I've governed collaboratively to get things done in the school district. I've had to make tough financial decisions, including budget reductions, so I know how to look at issues critically and thoughtfully. In this current elected position of mine, I've been held accountable to the public with fiscal decisions and oversight. I've always been responsive and accessible, and I solicit input and engage the public. And I also listen to both sides of any issue. I will do that as a council member, and I will be a voice for you. I am running a grassroots campaign, and as I have said before, I am not taking developer donations. My donations, my contributions are all coming from Pleasanton residents here. I also have a unique background in both science and business, so that will help with our water issues as well as COVID recovery. I can understand the issues. I am endorsed by Congressman Eric Swalwell, County Supervisor Nate Miley, various local leaders, the Sierra Club, and numerous residents in town. I have a track record of proven leadership on the school board, and again, being elected 3 times in the city. Please visit, votevaleriearkin.com for more information. Thank you very much, and I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. And to wrap up, Nancy Allen.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to participate tonight, and for our sponsors and fellow candidates, thank you as well. I hope you believe that my experience as a business and civic leader and finance experience matters. In today's time, I think experience matters, but I believe my independence is the greatest attribute I can offer you. I have fought for residents and small businesses since I started in our government 13 years ago. No matter the issue, you can count on me to dig deep, listen to all perspectives, ask the tough questions, and work collaboratively to make decisions to serve you, our Pleasanton residents. I don't take developer money. I don't sit on any boards that could have a conflict of interest with my work, and I resigned from the only board I was on right before I joined the Planning Commission. And I ask every candidate here to hopefully do the same thing, and I hope you in the community check that information out with your candidates, because I think it's important. My 5 priorities in running for the city council are: 1, promote fiscal accountability and protect our vital services. Also support economic recovery. 2, preserve the character of our downtown. This is our heart. As our city grows, this is the place and the only place that our community can gather together, celebrate our history and our diversity. I will do everything I can to help keep our heart alive. 3rd, promote responsible and thoughtful growth policies that minimize the impacts on traffic, water, and schools. 4th is collaborate with the school district to preserve our academic excellence. And my 5th priority is to preserve our scenic hillsides and open space for future generations. From our discussion today, I wanted to just capture a couple items. 1 is managing growth and housing. Pleasanton will grow. The question is how? Will it be in a thoughtful way with a plan serving our most important community needs, or will it be in a helter-skelter fashion where every developer gets their project approved no matter whether it fits the plan or not? In my 7 years as a planning commissioner, I have a long track record of promoting projects that add value to our residents and increase vibrancies, and saying no to projects that just do not fit. I'm the only candidate who stood with residents and small businesses last year to oppose policies that would have allowed downtown Main Street properties to be turned into 3-story condominiums. It just wasn't right. So in summary, you can be sure that my decisions on the city council will be based on your local values and not on the values of any outside interests. I would be honored to have your vote and continue contributing to our community. You can learn more about me at nancyallen2020.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to come to a close now. On behalf of the Weekly, I would like to thank all of the candidates for participating, the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce for making this possible, and thank you, Steve, for doing an excellent job with the timekeeping. A recording of both forums will be available soon through the Chamber's website and through pleasantonweekly.com. And on that note, I want to say have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Nice to
very
meet
much.
everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Jeremy.
Take care.
Thank you.